Flynn speaks. Okay, he tweeted for the first time since like 2017. Oh, you guys. And I'll tell you what, you're going to read this document with me, or I'm going to read the document to you. I don't know which. So stick with me and we'll do this together. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I am giddy. Oh my goodness. General Flynn has spoken. He put out a tweet, and look, it's his declaration here, and he put it out at 10:08 p.m. on April 24th, and I'm reading this about 11:30 because I just saw it. So, we're going to read it together. I have not read this yet. I read like the first page or so, and that's all I've read. So here we go. We're going to see it together. Let's go. It's 12 pages long. I don't know. I hope my voice lasts that long. But anyway, the Declaration of Michael T. Flynn. I, Michael T. Flynn, declare, 1, I am a citizen of the United States and more than 18 years old. 2, I served over 33 years in the United States Army. 5 of those years I spent deployed in active combat in Afghanistan, Iraq, and elsewhere around the world in support of United States foreign policy objectives. 3, I was a lifelong Democrat, and President Barack Obama twice appointed me to positions that required Senate confirmation. In my final military assignment, I served as head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, until September 2014. 4, on December 1st, 2017, reiterated on December 18th, 2018, I pled guilty to lying to agents of the FBI. 5, I am innocent of this crime, and I request to withdraw my plea. Yeah, he's doing it, folks. He withdrew his plea. Woo, woo, woo. Yay! Oh my goodness, that is great to hear. We knew it was coming, but it's finally here. Yay! 6, in December 2016, while I was working on then President-elect Trump's transition team, I received a letter from the FARA unit, that's the Foreign Registration Act thing, at the Department of Justice. In that letter, I learned that the FARA unit sought information about work that my former business, the Flynn Intel Group, did for a company called Innova BV that related to Turkey. I responded by seeking out respected counsel who were known and respected FARA lawyers. I chose Rob Kellner and his colleagues at Covington and Burling. I met with Covington lawyers on several occasions about FIG, that Flynn Intel Group, FARA issues. I gave them the information they requested and answered their questions truthfully. The most important instruction I gave them was to be precise. 7, on January 20th, 2017, I entered office as the President's National Security Advisor. 4 days later, FBI Deputy Director McCabe called me and asked if I would meet with a couple of FBI agents at the White House. I agreed. 8, while I was willing to oblige Deputy Director McCabe by meeting with a couple of agents on the 4th day of the new administration, I was extremely busy and only had a limited amount of time to give them. I tried to answer their questions as best I could during that brief meeting before again moving on to a schedule packed with new presidential and national security requirements. And y'all know, Trump speed, they're talking about that now. It's a term that they use. Everything moves at Trump speed now. And so with Trump speed, I'm sure this guy had a lot to do. This was something he took time out of his schedule, and he did that. And then they stabbed him in the back. 9, I was an intelligence officer for over 33 years. Since 1981 and throughout my military and government career, I have held the highest level security clearances our government provides. When FBI agents came to the White House on January 24th, 2017, I did not lie to them. I believed I was honest with them to the best of my recollection at the time. 10, I still don't remember if I discussed sanctions on a phone call with Ambassador Kislyak, nor do I remember if we discussed the details of a UN note on Israel. In regards to the sanction issue, I told the agents that tit for tat is a phrase I use, which suggests that the topic of sanctions could have been raised. The phone calls with Kislyak are still events of which I do not have a clear memory, and it related to a general category of information, phone calls about foreign policy, that are both sensitive and classified. 11, my baseline reaction to questions posed by people outside of my superiors, immediate command, or office of responsibility is to protect sensitive or classified information. except upon, quote, need to know, and the proper level of security clearance. That type of filter is ingrained in me and virtually automatic after a lifetime of honoring my duty to protect the most important national and military secrets. Number 12. I am and was fully aware that federal officials routinely monitor, record, and transcribe such conversations with foreign officials. Number 13. Of course, I was embarrassed and angered by the furor that erupted in the press after the felonious leak of highly sensitive and classified information that was my phone call with Ambassador Kislyak. It was distracting to my work to be the center of such a commotion, and it was upsetting to be the cause of disruption to the busy and important work in support of the new President of the United States. I resigned as National Security Advisor on February 13th, 2017. Number 15. I believe my resignation letter to President Trump stated quite accurately what happened, and both he and the Vice President graciously accepted my apology. The transition period was an incredibly intense time. I was communicating with representatives of multiple foreign countries on countless and varied issues every day. Frankly, of the national security dangers and concerns that weighed on our minds at that time, sanctions on Russia were far from the most pressing threat or concern. We were dealing with many more serious crises around the world. The calls with Ambassador Kislyak were brief and few, and they were no more exceptional than my numerous calls and personal interactions with senior representatives of governments from around the world doing an exceedingly demanding work schedule. Number 16. After I left the White House, I agreed to engage Kellner, his colleague Stephen Anthony, and other Covington lawyers to represent me in any FBI investigations and, eventually, the Special Counsel's Office investigation. They also continued to represent me and the Flynn Intel Group in regards to FARA-related issues. At one of my first meetings with Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony, they asked me if I, quote, had anything on President Trump, as it would provide much more leverage with the government. I told them from the beginning that I was unaware of President Trump doing anything wrong. Little buzzards tried to goad him into saying something bad. Oh, these guys. Number 17. With respect to the FARA filing, my Covington counsel did not explain to me that there were any issues with the FARA filing that required Covington to re-examine any of the issues in August 2017. I would have hired independent counsel to reevaluate the FARA filing and amend it if necessary had I known the severity of the conflict. Again, Covington was all in on this. Man, they set him up. I'm sure whoever advised him to use Covington and Burling, they were part of all this. That somebody there set him up. Number 18. To the best of my recollection and from my re-examination of the emails from August 2017, the vast majority of email traffic between me and Covington during that time was focused on the creation of my legal defense fund to pay my skyrocketing legal defense fees, by that time approaching $3 million. Wow, if it was $3 million by then, can you imagine how much it's been? Oh my goodness. I hope in the end that he gets all of this back. To that end, we put our Alexandria, Virginia home on the market in late November or early December 2017 timeframe to help pay the rising legal bills that we were incurring. We then moved to our family home in Rhode Island. Number 19. In late August 2017, my wife and I were in Rhode Island. Kellner and Anthony emailed us to arrange a telephone call. The call then occurred while we were driving to have dinner with some friends. It was approximately a 15-minute phone call where we had pulled off to the side of a highway. They informed us that there was a development regarding a conflict of interest. They also mentioned the possibility of Bijan being indicted. That was one of the guys that he worked with. Speaking to the conflict of interest, they stated that they were prepared to defend us vigorously if the conflict became an issue. We told them we trusted them. Yeah, little snakes there. They were setting him up. Number 20. In November 2017, the special counsel's office created sudden and intense time pressure on me to plead guilty. On November 4th, 2017, I believe, my Covington attorneys told my wife and me that the special counsel's office wanted to conduct a proffer session with me. They told me the SCO, quote, had yet to make a decision about how to proceed with me, and doing a proffer session would be a good way to let the SCO prosecutors, quote, get to know the real Mike Flynn. During the same meeting, my previous lawyers, Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony, proceeded to walk us through a series of items, essentially describing the risks of doing the proffer. From this meeting, I believe the following day, I agreed to do the proffer primarily based on my understanding that if the proffer went well, being indicted would be less likely. Otherwise, my indictment would be soon. They did not raise FARA issues with me that day or anything about a conflict of interest. 21. November 16, 2017 was the first day of the proffer with the SCO. That same evening, after concluding the first proffer, we returned to the Covington offices where my attorneys told me that the first day's proffer did not go well, and then proceeded to walk me through a litany of conceivable charges I was facing, and told me that I was looking at the possibility of 15 years in prison. Oh, can you imagine what he was feeling right then? Oh my goodness. These Covington people, oh, I hope he can get back at them and that he can get some justice there, because they just did not do him any favors. They were in on all this. I am sure of it. But then again, didn't Eric Holder work for them? I think so. In fact, I think he may still be doing that. Number 22, they reiterated the threat of charges against me, my son, as well as the potential of a long-term prison sentence. That evening, we discussed, and they encouraged me to use words and phrases they believed would help me, quote, get through the next day's proffer and satisfy the special counsel. Phrases that are not part of my normal vocabulary. That's a problem right there when they start putting words in your mouth. Number 23. During the second day of the proffer, I used words and phrases that were not really my own voice, and I regret that, just as I regret pleading guilty. People think that a 3-star general must know everything, but I was a fish out of water in a terrifying and completely foreign situation, with none of the legal skills necessary to deal with the many things being thrown at me. That happens with so many lawyers and the legal situations. You know, you have to rely on those lawyers to be honest with you. And if they're part of the problem, oh, can you imagine? You can't even trust them. Be careful of who you trust, right? Wow. I hired the team of the best lawyers I had been told I could find, and I relied on them completely. One of the ways a person becomes a 3-star general is by being a good soldier, taking orders, being part of a team, and trusting the people who provide information and support. Lori and I trusted Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony to guide us through the most stressful experience of our lives in a completely incomprehensible situation. I have never felt more powerless. I should have stood my ground firmly for what I knew to be the truth, that I did not lie to the agents, and I should have told this court on December 18, 2018, that I needed to consult new counsel. My relationship with Covington disintegrated soon thereafter. 24. This effort to, quote, say what they want approach during the proffer was noted by one of the interviewing agents, who stopped me at some point to ask whether what I was saying was something that really happened or whether I was just speculating, analyzing the past with the benefit of hindsight. I agreed with the agent that I was mostly speculating. Number 25. I recall Mr. Kellner's mention of a conflict of interest in late August in a brief phone call, but I did not attach any serious significance to it. Likewise, I did not understand the legalistic email I received on November 19, 2017, the eve of my third day of proffers, almost 3 months later. I trusted my attorneys and expected them to put my interests first, as they said they would do. Number 26, to have devoted my life to my country, only to be accused of crimes, slandered in the media with false and outrageous claims, and have my family threatened was an unimaginable nightmare, one that those who have not walked in these shoes will find difficult to comprehend. Number 27, Following the 4-day proffer on November 22nd, 2017, Kellner and Anthony called my wife and me as we were driving home to Rhode Island to spend Thanksgiving with family to tell me the SCO planned to bring charges and that I should consider a plea. Well, happy Thanksgiving there, General Flynn. Oh, what a way to treat a hero. Number 28, the week leading up to November 30th, 2017, Kellner and Anthony advised me that if I did not plead, I would be indicted on multiple counts and that my son, Michael G. Flynn, could or would face indictment. They repeated that I would be looking at the potential of 15 years in prison and said that I would be subjected to, quote, the Manafort treatment. And y'all remember what that was. They put him in solitary confinement. They treated him awful. Number 29, on November 30th, 2017, as plea negotiations with the SCO were coming to a head, I reiterated to my former lawyers, specifically Robert Kellner and Stephen Anthony, that I did not believe that I had lied in my White House interview with the FBI agents. I reminded them that I had spoken to representatives of well over 30 countries, many in a single 24-hour period, during that very busy holiday season and presidential transition period. In fact, some of those calls occurred while I was supposedly on, quote, vacation out of the country. Although I may have had an incomplete memory of the many details of certain conversations when speaking to the agents, I did not consciously or intentionally lie. Number 30. During this same day, later in the afternoon, Kellner and Anthony explained their view of how the government would go about proving its case and urged me to accept the plea deal that was on the table. They walked me through the final 302 in detail. They explained if I did not accept the plea deal that I should, quote, expect to be indicted the next day. 31. Still struggling with the decision whether to plead guilty, I asked my former attorneys to make further inquiry with the SCO prosecutors about whether the FBI agents believed that I had lied to them. In the preceding months leading up to this moment, I had read articles and heard rumors that the agents did not believe that I'd lied, something I also firmly believed. Number 32, Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony left the room to call the SCO prosecutors. When they returned, they informed my wife and me that they had been told that the, quote, agents stand by their statements. So in other words, they went out and got their marching orders, what they were supposed to do and how they were supposed to continue coercing him into this plea. Ooh, it just makes me so furious. Oh, so set up. Because I was then unaware that the agents had made the statements described in this declaration, and because I was unaware of what had passed between my former lawyers and the SCO outside of the room, I then understood them to be telling me that the FBI agents believed that I had lied. Number 33, my Covington attorneys counseled me to sign the statement of offense. Of course they did! Oh, I wonder how much they got paid for it. Don't you think somebody paid them off to make sure they did this? They didn't just do it out of the goodness of their hearts or the evilness of their hearts. Number 34, I agreed to plead guilty that next day, December 1st, 2017, because of the intense pressure from the special counsel's office, which included a threat to indict my son Michael and the lack of crucial information from my counsel. The SCO had already made Michael the subject of their investigation and taken all his files and communications devices, computer, phone, files, and thumb drive. Remember, they had taken all those things from him. It's not like they were just doing, an investigation in word only. They actually went and did this. They harassed him. At the time, Michael and his wife had a 4-month-old baby. Nonetheless, I would not have pled guilty if my former lawyers had informed me that both agents who interviewed me at the White House on January 24, 2017, had advised that A, I displayed a sure demeanor, B, I did not give any indications of deception, and C, both agents believed there was no indication that I was lying or that I believed I was lying. Can you imagine? I just... I've been accused of some things that I didn't do, and it's not fun. But this, and it was so high profile, everybody was talking about it. It was in the news. How awful. What this man went through. Number 35, at no time before my plea did my former lawyers explain or disclose this to me. Had I been informed of these disclosures, I never would have pled guilty. Moreover, I would have expected my Covington counsel to refuse to allow me to plead guilty with that information. And if it had been Sidney, whoa, Sidney Powell would never have let him plead guilty. Never. Number 36. I've spent my entire adult life accepting great responsibility. I accepted the plea agreement to stop the pain and threats to my family and to accept responsibility for what the government I have defended and served for more than 33 years said I did wrong. However, if my counsel had informed me both agents said I showed, quote, sure demeanor, quote, did not give any indications of deception, and that I showed, quote, no indication that I was lying or that I believed I was lying, I would not have signed the plea agreement or entered a guilty plea. Number 37. My former lawyers from Covington also assured me on November 30th, 2017, that if I accepted the plea, my son Michael would be left in peace. After I signed the plea, the attorneys returned to the room and confirmed that the SCO would no longer be pursuing my son. You know, we knew about this before it all came out in the news, but it just burns me that they did this to this man. I'm just appalled that our government was part of this, or some in our government were. Number 38, it was well after I pled guilty on December 1st, 2017, that I heard or read that the agents had stated that they did not believe that I had lied during the January 24th, 2017 White House interview and the other information described in this declaration. And you know who's responsible for that? Yeah, that was the media. The mainstream media kept that out of the news. Oh, it was out there, but it was not out there in the mainstream media. It was out there in the alternative media. And of course, you know, that didn't get the play that the other did. So that was the narrative they had to set. Oh. Still later, I heard it reported that former FBI Director Comey and FBI Deputy Director McCabe testified to Congress that the agents did not believe I lied. After learning this information, I reiterated to my former attorneys numerous times that I did not lie to the agents and questioned if I might be able to withdraw my plea. 39. Each time I raised this issue with my former attorneys, they urged me to stick with my plea deal. Quote, it was a good deal. Or the government would indict me for multiple other offenses and also drag my son back into the crosshairs. Their constant refrain was to, quote, stay on the path with the deal they had negotiated. Yeah, stay on the path with the deal they'd negotiated for themselves, from whoever was paying them to do that. Number 40. In the days leading up to the December 18, 2018 sentencing hearing, Robert Kellner and Stephen Anthony continued to urge me to, quote, stay on the path. They predicted, correctly, that the government would recommend a term of probation and that my son would not be further targeted. Number 41. However, during the December 2018 hearing, Judge Sullivan's decision to proceed with an extended plea colloquy took both me and my former counsel completely by surprise. I'm not so much sure about his former counsel, though. They had not prepared me for what occurred. The court's comments that day stunned me. The entire experience was surreal, and that day was one of the worst days of my life. That was the day I believed that Sullivan accused him of being a traitor to his country. Yeah, that, and then he walked it back, but the damage had already been done. I mean, really. Oh, number 42. My Covington attorneys had only prepared me for a simple hearing in which I would be sentenced to probation, as the government had agreed. I was not prepared for this court's plea colloquy, much less to decide on the spot whether I should withdraw my plea, consult with independent counsel, or continue to follow my existing lawyer's advice. Prior to the sentencing hearing, they counseled me that if the court were to ask me if I wanted to withdraw my plea, that I should say no because, quote, the court would be giving you the rope to hang yourself. Regretfully, I followed my lawyer's strong advice to confirm my plea, even though it was all I could do to not cry out no when this court asked me if I was guilty. Number 43. During the break in the hearing offered by the court, my former attorneys were as shocked as I was at the colloquy and the way in which the hearing had proceeded. My wife Lori counseled me and my attorneys that we should accept the court's offer to postpone sentencing. Number 44. In late spring 2019, when Covington actually insisted I seek independent counsel, I did. New counsel immediately identified the conflict of interest, and I then terminated Covington. So, woohoo, enter Sidney Powell. Woo. That was a great decision. And the thing is, she wrote a book about this kind of thing going on. So she really was already kind of up to speed with things. All she had to do was hear his specific story because she knew what these people did. She knew how they worked. Number 45, I realize my statement and determination to assert my innocence means the prosecutors who already seek to imprison me may retaliate further by seeking additional charges against me and dramatically increase the penalty I face. Wow. That's a very distinct possibility. Number 46, I express my profound apology to this court, my family, the president, our country, and all who have supported and had faith in me throughout this incomprehensible ordeal. I tried to, quote, accept responsibility by admitting to offenses I understood the government I love and trusted said I committed. In truth, I never lied. My guilty plea has rankled me throughout this process, and while I allowed myself to succumb to the threats from the government to save my family, I believe that I was grossly misled about what really happened. Number 47, I will not confirm a plea of guilty I should never have entered. I have served my country honorably all my life and accepted responsibility for myself and others from a young age, as my sister Claire wrote to you in her beautiful letter on behalf of my siblings. As God is my witness, the truth is I am innocent of these charges and any other alleged criminal conduct. And I request to withdraw my plea of guilty, and I will fight to restore my good name. Woo-hoo! You go for it, sir! Oh, my goodness. Number 48, to the best of my recollection, the foregoing is true and correct. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct, executed on the 29th day of January 2020. Ba-boom! You go, sir. Oh, this is wonderful. And I sure hope that this goes through because I don't want President Trump to pardon him because a pardon implies that you're guilty of something. He is not guilty. He never has been guilty. He needs to have this entire thing expunged from his record because this is an innocent man. This is a great man, and he is an American hero. Oh, man. Thanks for reading that with me. I'm sorry, guys. I just got all hyper about it. That's the first time I've read through it. I don't know. It says there's 12 pages. I don't know what page 12, I guess, is blank. And this is just page 12. Okay. So anyway, that's what it is. I wanted to get this out there because it just came out, like I said, and this was well worth waiting for. This is almost better than an indictment. Not quite, but almost. This is another step toward that because once his name is cleared, that's going to take a lot of wind out of the sails of the deep state because he is innocent. And if he gets put back in a position of authority, wowzer. Oh, can you imagine if he would get in as the new National Security Advisor? And you know what? The National Security Advisor is the one position that doesn't have to be approved by Congress. Yeah, and that's why actually at the beginning he said that he had been approved twice through Senate because that was for Obama's positions. So he had to go through that approval stage and he had been Senate confirmed. So they really couldn't complain too much about it because he'd been Senate confirmed twice under Obama. And then you turn around and they did everything to him that they did. Oh, this just did my heart good. It's been out since the 29th. I'm not sure why it wasn't released until now, but that's cool. I can live with that. And I'm very, very happy that this has finally happened because we knew it was coming. We just didn't know when. And for those of you who are sitting there saying, yeah, well, what about the indictments? Oh, but this is the first step. This is a major step. Once this is taken care of, look out because General Flynn will be back and there will be nothing they can do to him because, double jeopardy, they can't try him for the same thing again. So once it's been, taken care of, He is free to say whatever he knows. And I think we're going to start seeing tweets from him like you've never seen tweets, and we're going to hear some major stuff. Nothing classified, because remember, he wouldn't do that. But it's going to be stuff that needs to be out there and that people just might not know. So that's what I've got for you on this one, folks. It just made me all yippee skippy happy. Oh, I hope it did you too. And, I know some of you aren't interested in me reading the whole thing because you can read for yourselves. But hey, I always put the links down below. And so you can just get the document if you want to. But I just felt I needed to read this whole thing. I hadn't read it except for the first couple pages. And so we read it together. Woo, that's always more fun, right? If I could do live stream, I'd be doing the live stream. I just haven't gotten the microphone thing worked out yet. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.